Welcome to Martial Wisdom. Here you can listen to conversations on all kinds of topics related to martial arts. The topic of our discussion today is martial arts in movies, and how that affects our training and how we look at the martial arts. Joining me in this discussion is Dr. Zhang. Before we start, please consider supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Spirit Aikido online program, which currently has more than 160 videos. Another option is to contribute any amount you like through the PayPal tip jar. Even small contributions are greatly appreciated. I hope you enjoy this episode. Now, on with the discussion. I've got a great show today, and I'm welcoming back my friend, Dr. Zhang. I hope I pronounced that correctly or close.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about martial arts in the movies and show business and whether or not it's a blessing or a curse to the martial art itself. This is going to be a great topic. John is actually in the movies. He's a stuntman and actor, so I think he would be a great person to give a little insight to this subject. I mean, I think we all have some opinions on it, and it's the show business has certainly affected all of us in the martial arts. So I think this is gonna be a great topic. Welcome back, John.
Thank you so much for having me back. I had a great time last time, so I'm thrilled to be back today. So thank you so much.
Fantastic. Well, we got some meat to dig into on this one. Really, the blessing or the curse is what is the role of show business and movies and TV on the martial arts? I think the first thing everybody thinks about is there's a certain actor or a certain movie star that just opened my eyes to martial arts, and it brought me to the martial arts, and that's why I was interested in it. I fell in love with, and you could fill in the blank with art, whether it's Chuck Norris in karate, Steven Seagal with Aikido, Bruce Lee for Kung Fu and Chinese arts. There's a long list of names. I can't say that you can't deny that there's been a positive influence in terms of interest.
I couldn't agree more. And the names you just mentioned there, I think at one point in my life or another, they've all influenced me. It's like you watch someone like Jackie Chan, Jet Li, and then when you see, I think back in 2008 when Jet Li and Jackie Chan actually collaborated, you're like, it's phenomenal. And certainly I feel that films have done some wonders for the martial arts. It's certainly brought it to something that's more mainstream, especially with Bruce Lee, with his films. There are some, the amount of people I meet who say, oh, I started martial arts because of Bruce Lee. I started martial arts because I used to watch Jackie Chan films and everything. And, it's lovely to hear that, so many years on from their heyday, they are still influencing and inspiring people and today's generation. Sure. So it's very rare would I ever hear someone's. I've seen it only once when someone said on a forum, "Hey guys, who's this Bruce Lee guy you keep talking about?" Yep. So for sure, it's when you watch when you watch films and you see the fight sequences, which are spectacular. It looks like that's the first time they're doing it, and it's all very natural. Of course, behind the scenes, they probably spent months and months and months rehearsing that, so it looks second nature. Certainly, from my experience working on film sets, you tend to, with bigger budget films, you have a lot of time to rehearse. So you get to synchronize and work with your partner. Let's say you and I have a fight scene together. We get to rehearse. We get to rehearse the timing, the different techniques, the nuances, and make amendments. Well, the fight choreographer will make amendments as and when. It's like, for instance, I'm 5'9" on a good day. How tall are you?
6'4".
Wow. Okay. So if the fight choreographer had planned for a fight scene between two guys who are roughly the same height and build, then that would need as soon as you and I come on set. You know what I mean? So there are always things that we need to that will always need changing, especially on the day when you're on the set, for instance. Small things might need to be changed because the environment is different to the one that you've rehearsed in. So things are always subject to change in that regard. And when you see the final cut, on the big screen or on your TV screen, that's usually the best version. There
Oh,
are
sure.
many outtakes, like you see in the Jackie Chan films.
Mhm.
At the end of every film, I'm sure we've all.
Oh yeah.
That was probably the highlight of every Jackie Chan film. You just watch it to the end to
Yep.
see the credits,
Hmm.
and you see just how many times it all went wrong.
Yep. Even when it had a script or a blueprint for what it's supposed to be, keeping it on that. And that the way that I think about it is really it's a very elaborate and expensive commercial. Like it is a presentation crafted for dramatic effect. And it, like you said, it's meant to look plausible, like this would be how it would look naturally. And
Yeah.
the irony is how unnatural it is to make it look natural, and that's the part that draws you into the fact that it looks like that. And oops, I'm getting a connection notice again here, but um and I think that's one of the things that as people look at, oh well, this is what violence would be like, or this is how effective this art would be. It's going to be different when there is no script, when it's not crafted. And I think the people that are watching videos because of YouTube and because of the more transparency now that's coming within the martial arts realm, and I think audiences are getting a little more sophisticated. They can spot something that doesn't look right. That and even the martial art movies of the 70s look vastly different from the 80s or 90s, which are different from today. And they've gotten more sophisticated because audiences can spot, oh, okay, this is kind of fake, and it's entertaining, but you can spot that. But
Of course.
and this is to me, when I see demonstrations by martial artists, because they don't have that Hollywood crafting or the movie that really developed science of creating a compelling demo that looks completely real. When people see it, whether they're live or whether they're watching it on video, they go, oh, I can see how it's not quite real. I can see it's a little fake. It's a little contrived. You can tell that this is planned. And they kind of dismiss that because, well, it's not what I'm used to seeing, like John Wick or, something of that nature, which is, I mean, the level of craft that goes into the John Wick movies or the Mission Impossibles or the modern hand-to-hand fighting is phenomenal. I mean, but it is expensive. It takes an epic effort to create that.
Absolutely. I mean, especially when you have the actors who will learn the fight sequences as well as the stunt doubles as well,
Mm-hmm.
just in case, the actor can't do it, or they want like a cleaner run between two stunt doubles having to
Sure.
do it themselves, and um, because that's what the stunt guys do for a living. It's
Yeah.
so I think with certainly what you said there, when you see martial arts performances and films, yeah, like demonstrations, obviously for martial arts, expos and everything. Obviously, there's an element of choreography, so
Mhm.
it's not a real fight,
Right.
and when with some of the comments I see on YouTube, when you see a martial arts demonstration, the comments say, "Oh, it's so fake." Well, no, it's a demonstration. It's
Right.
so in terms of like efficacy, that what you see in the films, I always see some elements which are, oh yeah, that's really good. That's workable. It's like
Mhm.
there's some things in, say, Taken and The Equalizer, which I think, hey, that's really cool. I really like that.
Mhm.
And then but then you get stuff like, say, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where you've got the wire work and everything. It
Mhm.
still requires a huge amount of athleticism
Oh,
by the.
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
unmatched. It's
Yep.
insane, and I think um, it's good for. It's good to showcase the art form for sure. And you see the variety. And what I love in films with fight scenes is the variety of and the creativity of,
Mhm.
like in the Raid, for instance. There is the range of techniques which they do in that film is phenomenal because
Mhm.
they don't repeat themselves, and it's very, you know, nothing is yeah, everything is just new and everything is refreshing. And then you get other films which might reuse the same choreography again and again and again,
Right.
which then I get a bit bored from it. But I think in terms of when you see if you're a martial artist and you're watching a fight scene, we tend to be quite critical of that. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, I don't know about that. It's
Well, and the best example, and I would encourage anybody listening to this is for the example is go and look on YouTube for Marine Corps martial arts demonstration. And this is a video I ran into a couple of years ago, and it was U.S. Marines, and they were doing a demonstration for some kind of a crowd. I don't know what the audience was, if it was some fair or something where they were trying to do recruiting, but they were showing they had a little it was an area that had a bunch of those little rubber pieces so you could throw people into the ground really hard.
okay.
Like kind of a little pit, and they were showing their martial art, and boy did it look fake. But I mean, these are the U.S. Marines. They're training soldiers for hand-to-hand combat. Like that's a legit art. And there are other videos where there was another one where they had a group of MMA fighters that went to the Marine Corps training facility, and they actually they set up a couple of MMA type fights with Marines versus MMA fighters. And of course, the MMA fighters dominated that one. And then they turned around and said, all right, we're going to take the MMA fighters and we're going to have them go on a Marine Corps training course. Like this is what the Marines trained for. And the Marines just annihilated them, because it's two different things meant for two different purposes. But for the demonstration, now you're making these martial artists, these fighters, these warriors, soldiers become actors, and they're not actors. They're, what they're doing is designed for combat.
Yes.
And so when you said about the hypercritical thing, I think this is one of those things where to get that dose of reality, realize, are you taking somebody who's trained to do one thing and now wanting them to do another and expecting them to be good at it? Because you can be a great actor and not be a good martial artist, and vice versa. And the same thing with, being a fighter versus a soldier. Those are very different. And
completely agree. I mean, I generally split martial arts into three main categories, which is health, fighting, and performance. I think at some point in our martial art careers, we'll do all three at some point.
Sure.
It's some of us make a living from doing one or the other, or even all of them. So you get UFC fighters like Gina Carano, who've just gone into, well, she's been in film for a while now, but
Sure.
Kung Lee, who's in films and everything. So it's I find, because I've worked with fighters before for films, and when I'm the one choreographing, or if I'm the one they're fighting, it worries the heck out of me sometimes, because they're distancing. It's like when they throw a jab, they get in close, they commit with it.
Right.
And of course, for choreography, you need that safe distance. You need the timing as well.
Right.
So it's like I have found that you need to make that mental adjustment. It's like when I first got into films 11 years ago, we were training to be in synchronized, just be in sync with one another, and synergize and everything. And so we weren't hurting each other. It just looked like we were going at it. I will tell you though, my sparring suffered. It really suffered. Yeah, oh yeah. It's because I would be on set 5 days a week, and then on the Saturdays I would have my sparring class, and I was really good at not hitting people, but throwing really nice techniques that was slightly out of range, but and you could see it was slightly out of range from one angle. If you look at it from a different angle, it looked like I was really close. Right. So it's just tweaking that, you know what I mean? It's I think it's being able to adjust yourself and being flexible and versatile. And I think if you have a martial arts background, it's if you're trained to go in for the kill, it's now pretending that you are and not actually doing it, but still looking convincing. So that's an adjustment for sure. Though, I mean, when you see the old school kung fu films where everything is ha 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 ha, it's at the time it's like really fascinating to watch. I think now when you compare it to modern day action films, the pacing is different, the storytelling is different, and I think it's a bit quicker now
Sure.
especially with the cameras that they have now and everything. But
Mhm.
I think these days they try to make it look more doable. Like, have you seen Extraction?
No, I've not seen that one. I'll write it down though.
Oh, it's fantastic. It is fantastic.
Sure.
It's got Chris Hemsworth, the guy who played Thor,
Yep.
and just phenomenal. You know,
Sure.
there's some really neat moves in that. Obviously, it's like you know, and I say this to a lot of hardcore martial artists. You know, hey, you know that would work if you chose to do it at the right time, if the
Right.
conditions were right for you to do that. You know,
Mhm.
it's because you know, when I watch films, martial art films with other martial artists, you know, they'll be like, yeah, that wouldn't work, that wouldn't work, that wouldn't work.
Mhm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
well, one, it's a film, and two, it is, you know, that technique would work if you chose the right time to deploy it. If those conditions were favorable for that particular technique, you
Right.
just have to be the best judge of when to do it. So,
Exactly.
and I think that's the thing with a lot of martial artists. Sometimes they'll put themselves in that position. Well, I wouldn't do that because of such and such.
Right.
And you know, I think when we watch films, we need to suspend our disbelief. You
Oh
know.
yeah. Well, to
Yeah.
realize too, what you're watching is entertainment. You're not
Yes.
watching, a real fight to analyze how it goes. You're watching something that's meant to be, that's crafted to be dramatic and pleasing to the eye. And I think when
Absolutely.
you talked about that kung fu, the ha 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 thing,
Mm.
and I seem to recall Bruce Lee mentioning this, but it was so long ago that I can't even really paraphrase. But I think what he said was, in order for the camera to see and for the viewer to be shown something that will entertain him, it's got to be clear and crisp, and it's got
Yes.
to be apparent. And
Absolutely.
in the same way, boxing was affected by the gloves because headshots became more popular. They were dramatic. They were exciting to watch. The
Yes.
big shots were happening. The audience could see it. Older pugilism and bare knuckle boxing was not as exciting to watch, and
Mm.
therefore it wasn't. It's coming back now, but
Yeah.
it's not the same. Huge. Everybody wants big shots. They want to see them. They want to
Mm.
see the dramatic effect. And I think the movies are affected the same way. If you have something that's so fast, and I wanted to bridge this into the topic of speed, because speed is so compelling to the eye. I think this is one of the reasons that Bruce Lee was so popular, because he just, with Enter the Dragon, he was so fast, and it was just breathtaking. And everybody, I think, that's the first thing they saw with how quick he was, because, and that speed that they saw was, I mean, he was have a phenom, period. I mean, if a physical, he could do what other people just could not. And I even read that he had to actually slow down so that the camera could see what he was doing, because he was so fast. But the idea that speed is captivating. And I mean, he's not the only one. I mean, I remember Jeff Speakman, he was incredibly fast hands. He came along in, I think, the 80s.
Yes.
Um, that speed is not only with the artist, but I think as film came along, film scenes started to accelerate and get
Yes.
faster. In
Absolutely.
fact, so fast now that you can't even really see what's happening. And I remember I want to say it was Batman Begins.
Mm.
I remember reading when that movie was in pre-production, that the fight choreographer, I guess, brought a very innovative combination of arts together for what Batman would have used in his combat. And what I understand, it used a lot of forearms, because Batman's got those forearm
Yeah.
armor with the little things on it, and I was so intrigued to see that movie. I was like, I can't wait to see what did they come up with. This is something new.
Mm.
And then I saw the movie, and the fight scenes were all in the dark. Of course, everybody's wearing black, and all you see were swishes back and forth. You couldn't make out the figures, the positions, like it was, but
Yeah.
your imagination filled in what you couldn't see, which I think made those action sequences very powerful. But
Absolutely.
you really couldn't see much
Mm.
for most of those action sequences, but they were fast, and the sound made it sound faster, the whooshing and the quick pans with the camera and things like that. So it really drew you to the speed. It created that illusion of they're going super fast, even though I always viewed Batman as being, really big guy, probably
Mm.
didn't move very fast. he's carrying a lot of equipment. He's got a
Yeah,
cape on, so, but he's going to be solid. If he hits you, it's going to lay you out, or and he's going to be hard to hit or do damage to, which I was kind of expecting to see that part. Like, how did he integrate the armor into his fighting?
of course, yeah.
Things like that. But, and of course I love the movie. But I was a little let down in the fact of, if they really did that much crafting to make, Batman's martial art, I really want to see it.
Absolutely. It's, I mean, that's the thing with storytelling. So you have, I find that, if you have a character like Batman, and you build on that, as soon as you care about a character in a film, as soon as he throws a punch, you feel that. As soon as he takes a punch, or takes a hit, you as the audience, you will feel that more because you care about this character. You have some kind of emotional attachment to this character. And of course, when you've got the post-production where they've got the special effects, the sound, and sounds, my goodness, it's
Oh yeah.
yeah. And I think with when you have someone like Batman, I mean, it is shot in the dark, which is a shame because you want to see everything. And,
Right.
I think it's only in Dark Knight Rises on the third one where you actually see him fighting in the day,
Right.
toward the end, and it's yeah, I mean, you see him do a bit more things, but I think I mean, Batman's meant to be, from the League of Shadows. He's more or less a ninja,
Yeah, exactly. They're like the ultimate ninja.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And I think when I see, because I go to universities and help to coach students on choreography, and some of them always want some crazy fight scene. I said, yeah, but does that fit in with the character that you're writing? And for the most part, it's like if it's a secret agent, why is he doing like a gymnastics somersault or something like that? It's I mean, if you're Black Widow, it makes sense because you've got the tight outfit on, you just got these sleek takedowns. It's like the double leg takedowns around the neck. You do a somersault, they fall to the ground, you roll back onto your feet, and it all looks so cool. But if it's someone like James Bond, for instance, his movements still need to be in character. It's
Exactly.
But I
Well,
think
and this brings up another entertainment thing, which is, and boxing went through the same thing. If you're going to entertain a crowd, you don't want to fight over in 3 seconds. Like that doesn't, and same thing in a movie, or show business. You don't want your violence done so quickly that people don't even get a chance to savor it. And I would say one of the series that I saw that did this fantastic was Daredevil. If you saw that series, they have got some, I think, elite level fight scenes in that series. And the two that come to mind are the stairwell scene. And I mean, these things go on for a minute and a half, 2 minutes or more. I mean, and then there's a hallway scene where doors are coming in and there's, Russians everywhere. And, but I agree with you that the idea that to transpose this into your own self of a real violent situation, you don't want a 2-minute fight going on.
Absolutely
that's the last thing you want. You want this thing over in a few seconds or less than 10 seconds, which translates to what we see from studies of real fight encounters and how long they often last. Most are less than 7 to 10 seconds. Even larger are less than 15 seconds, and they rarely go 30 seconds a minute or longer than that. And I think as people understand the difference between violence for entertainment and violence in reality, there's two very distinct differences.
It's true. And it's like I can't imagine I mean it's like when you've got, say, if you have a situation like a bar fight in a film and a bar fight in real life, my goodness, are they different? It is apples and oranges, and it's like real fighting is ugly, and it is ugly, and
pure
it's
chaos.
It is absolutely. I mean, anytime that I've ever been in a real life situation, I've had to make sure that I'm okay first. I need to make sure that I keep myself nice and cool. It's like I can only donate money if I have money. I can only give myself if I first have myself.
Right.
So it's and of course in films, you take out one guy whilst the guy behind you is politely waiting for his cue. As
Right.
soon as you turn around, that's when he comes to. So it's there's a lot of timing and everything. In real life, it's completely different,
Sure.
obviously, and it's I think like for instance, Michael Jai White,
Mhm.
who is fantastic.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the physical athleticism, the size, the strength, the fighting capabilities. I'm certain that how he fights in films is very different to how he'd do a real fight. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And the same would be for the rest of us. It's like
Mhm.
if, for instance, I'm the choreographer for a film and I need to write you a part. I need to choreograph something for you.
Mhm.
Then I would add a few things here and there. Aikido, bit of jujitsu, this
Mhm.
and that. Of course, you know those are sequences that someone else came up with for you to play the part of. You know,
Mhm.
let's say we put you in a real life situation, you do something completely different.
Oh, yeah.
It is completely different. It's
Mhm.
like you might still be on camera in a real life situation just because kids nowadays film everything.
Mhm.
Um, it's I'm grateful that any situation that I was ever in when I was younger, that was really before the time of camera phones.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
now you can't get away with anything.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yep. There's a camera around every corner.
My goodness, yeah. But I think when you've got, say, legitimate martial artists who are in films,
Mhm.
and you see how they pull off those movements,
Mhm.
with their own experience, with their own, that's a pleasure to watch.
Oh, it
That's
is.
a pleasure to watch.
Mhm.
And it's I know Steven Seagal gets a bad rep and everything, but
Mhm.
in terms of I love his takedowns. I love some of
Oh,
the stuff.
yeah.
It's I think I like his earlier stuff
Mhm.
as opposed to his newer stuff for
Sure.
sure.
Right.
It's and even with like that knife fight scene he does with Tommy Lee Jones,
Mhm.
oh, I love it.
Yeah.
For me, it was Tommy Lee Jones who made that. He's not a
Sure.
martial artist, but
Yeah,
my
yeah.
goodness, if you're a good enough actor to look convincing, like wow,
Yeah, exactly. And that was a great sequence. I mean, I think Aikido probably is the best martial art that looks dramatic on a silver screen because you get somebody getting chucked head over feet. And I think that's why when the original Seagal movies came out, they were such a refreshing change of pace from the punch festivals that tended to be, and kicking,
Yes.
that tended to be popular at the time. And I think that's why he hit in Hollywood so
Yeah.
big, because it was like nobody'd seen anything like that. And but when you bring up a knife fight, one of the ones I think is probably the best if you want to look at what a real knife fight probably looked like was the apartment scene in Saving Private Ryan.
Oof.
That I want to go take a shower every time I see that scene. Like I know it's coming and I know it's rough, but and it didn't look pretty. It was sloppy and horrifying. Like to me,
Yeah.
that's probably what a real knife fight looks like versus one that was eye candy for a
Of course.
great dramatic sequence. And I know it's on YouTube. People can look it up, but and knives I know are a big topic within the martial arts, and I think it's one of those things that need to be clarified. Of
I
if you're
agree.
going to have a illusion about martial arts, do it with anything except a knife or a weapon. Like, don't start to think that entertainment arts are going to be the same as an actual fight, but with a deadly weapon. Like it's not going to.
Couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right. It's like I've been slashed, never stabbed, touch wood, and even if it's a shallow cut, it doesn't stop bleeding. It doesn't, and it's you need to have that mental preparation as well. And it's like there's it, and it is ugly. It's very ugly,
Yeah,
and you've got
terrifying.
yeah, yeah, it absolutely is. It's like if it's hand to hand, um, I'm confident. I'm very confident. As
Mm-hmm.
soon as someone pulls something out, boy, do I have to switch on.
Right.
It changes the game completely.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it doesn't matter how good you are anymore. It doesn't matter how good, because any fool can do something with,
Yeah.
and it's of course films do glorify that. It's
Sure.
they do where you get the guy who rushes in
Right.
and gives you
Yep.
plenty of time to. Oh, it's if only,
Right.
but if only it was that simple. But then, you've got, because, in real life, you've got the guys who don't know how to use it, but they can still cause irrevocable amounts of damage.
Right.
Then you got the guys who know how to use it,
Mhm.
and it's like chances are you'll never see it coming.
And that's a
Or
whole new level of terrifying.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think when you see, there's a film called The Hunted with Tommy Lee Jones, Benicio del Toro. I
Mhm.
think he's like I don't know if you've seen it, but
No, I haven't.
it's so for those who haven't seen it, it is a Tommy Lee Jones is like a contractor for a like special forces unit,
Mhm.
and Benicio del Toro is one of the elite Marines. But then he has extreme PTSD, so when he comes back from times of war, he can't switch it off. So he ends up, you know, um, he continues the fight, and then no one can stop him. But then Tommy Lee Jones, being the instructor, has to go and face him and track him down and everything.
Mhm.
It's quite the watch. It is very brutal. And again, for these two guys who are not martial artists, to be
Mhm.
able to pull off those movements is phenomenal.
Sure.
And you get the only thing I will say is, in the end fight scene, they both sustain a lot of damage. And
Right.
I'm like, one of those cuts and you're done, really. But
Right. Well, and that's part of the drama is, the good guy gets that what you think is a critical hit and he's going to be done, but he
yeah,
keeps fighting because his will is so strong. I mean, that's part of the dramatic storytelling.
absolutely,
And the reality is a whole lot different, with that, could possibly fatal cut or stab.
absolutely.
And that's, if anything, I think, and I've had this affect me. I've had people come into my dojo and say, well, I'm looking to take up martial art training. Will you train me to deal with a knife attack or to deal with knives? And it's tough to answer that question
Yeah,
because
of course it
I
is.
need to know what their expectation is. Did they just watch a movie like that had, the good guy deftly handling a knife attacker and stripping the knife from him and making it look like he was, super casual about it and effective. And it's like, if that's what you're envisioning knife defense looking like, then no, that I can't train you to do that. That's not reality.
So true.
There is realistic knife training, but it looks nothing like that. Um, and
It,
that's something, managing a potential student's expectations is a huge thing for an instructor. Um,
absolutely.
and I
I
think,
couldn't agree more.
yeah,
I think with when I've had to do, it's like if people want to do knife defense and everything, you do have to manage those expectations. It's
absolutely.
like having some training is better than none, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like I did a knife defense video with my friend Master Wong,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously, it's like it is a demonstration, but it's also I did what felt right at the time. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? It's like that one technique that you do that seemed to work that one time will never work again unless the conditions are exactly the same.
Right.
The guys held you in the same position. No, I mean, if he's coming at you, then
Mm-hmm.
it's a completely different story.
Yeah.
And you get those cool knives where it's like a little rod. As soon as you hit someone, it bleeps. So
Okay. Yep. Yep.
it simulates where you would have been cut. So
Mm-hmm.
I played around with those before, and honestly, it's like as good as you think you might be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, boy, is that a humbling experience. You're like,
Oh, it
well,
is. Yep.
he would have got me here, 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 here. So it's unrealistic to be unscathed from
Mm-hmm.
such an attack. And um, if you are unscathed, then hey, you got lucky. You
Yeah.
got very lucky. But I
You'd be
think
in the
that there is a
minority.
huge element. Yeah, it is a minority, and certainly it's like when I used to do security, or when I used to grow up in when I grew up in a less than reputable area. Um, People did have those types of objects.
Mm-hmm.
Syringes, screwdrivers, box cutters, and other types of blades, which were not nice. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you were lucky enough to spot it quickly and intervene or get out of there, hey, that was a good day. But as soon as someone's pulled it out and started, and you do, and then I know say, oh well, when you watch Jackie Chan films and everything, he looks around, he's very resourceful and everything. There's some merit to that for sure. I think there is some merit to using your surroundings. If there happens to be a crowbar lying on a floor.
Yeah. Oh, improvised weapons are huge. As soon as a weapon comes into play, like you got to get something bigger. That's
right.
Definitely a true part of it, and that'll be part of the dramatic scenery too if they choreograph that into the film. I do think that these presentations draw a huge crowd, and I think that back to our original point, the first one is when you see that type of thing and you want to be that, it's always going to draw students. It's going to be, they're going to want that, what they saw on the screen. I think that movie choreography, I wonder if it's changing in the fact that you don't see much of single art presentations more. Now they're fusions of different arts all together.
Yes.
And John Wick is
is
an example of that. And in the Mission Impossible series, the James Bonds, they're all kind of a mishmash. I kind of wonder what it's going into the future, of whether or not, movies really aren't being a commercial for a single martial art anymore. I think that era is past.
I think if it's you've got films like Ip Man, for instance, which are, you do get films which are dedicated to that. So you get, say, like Ip Man, for instance, is mostly showcasing Wing Chun against other styles and everything. So in the East, for sure, that's more of a thing. I think for Western films, for Hollywood films, I think they just use, for the most part, they'll use techniques that work best in that particular situation. It doesn't matter what style it came from. And I think with Ip Man, because I had a friend say to me, quite a young lad who's just getting into martial arts, he's saying, well, I just watch Ip Man. I want to be as tough as him. And I'm like, well, Ip Man was a real person, but I don't think the portrayal of him in all four films was necessarily accurate and a representation of him as a person. I think in the first Ip Man film, he doesn't take too many hits at all. He's a god amongst men. And I think when you have, you need to have realistic expectations. But that's so. People have said to me, yeah, but when you do these fight scenes with people and everything with Dwayne Johnson, we all know you could take him in a real fight. Why do you always die in films? And my answer to them is simply that my self-esteem isn't tied to the guy I'm playing, the character that I'm playing.
Right.
I'm there to do a job. Okay. If the job is for me to get shot in the head or thrown over a table, get slammed to the ground, so be it. It does not affect me as a martial artist, as my abilities as a martial artist. So I think when you see some of these huge actors who have in their contract that they're not supposed to take too many punches, for instance.
Right.
I'm like, it's like if I got the call to do Expendables, for instance, and I get taken out very quickly, hey man, I got took out by an expendable. Hey, I'm pretty happy with that.
Exactly. Well, and you got a working job. Like, that's an actor. They want to be in a working job. They want to work on high prestige films. The role they play. And that's, having met actors personally, it's a whole different perspective when you are part of the presentation of making that story come to life.
Yes.
Whether it's playing a role that I think whether a role that you don't like. And as I understand it, Leonardo DiCaprio had real trouble playing a Southern plantation owner, because of his own personal morality. And he was told by a fellow actor, like, listen, you are an actor. You're just playing a role. This is not who you are personally. It's not what you believe in, but you are portraying another person. So kind of get over it, and you're getting paid. So, suck it up. And
like Samuel L. Jackson's character in that film.
Exactly. And actors, it's one of the things that I found kind of charming about actors is they can separate themselves from the role they're playing, and shamelessly, like and I think that it's a protection mechanism, because if you play certain characters that can be haunting or that can be, against your own beliefs or whatever, you have to have a detachment from that. You can't say that that's me, even though for a short period of time, you turn yourself into that.
Yes.
And I think Val Kilmer did that with when he played Jim Morrison in The Doors. He went through that. He tried to basically turn himself into the unstable mental character that was Jim Morrison. As what they call it, method acting, I believe, is when you try to turn yourself into that. But you don't stay that way. You detach. Once you're done with the role, you have to detach yourself out of it.
Absolutely. And I think it's being able to detach is essential, and I think when you get, say, Marines who can't switch off, for instance, I think that's a legitimate issue that needs to be addressed for sure. For actors, I mean, I think it's different. I think you just have to be able to detach, and it's with when you see, for instance, I like seeing the lead character taking a beating. I love that,
Right.
It's because it seems a bit more relatable. Like in Ip Man 2, and even in the third one, I haven't seen the fourth one yet. Donnie Yen's character, Ip Man, takes more of a beating than he does in the first one.
Sure.
And I think that makes it so much more relatable. I love that because it's I think it's unrealistic to not take a bit of a beating anyway. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, that's part of the drama. Is the good guy is facing a severe uphill battle, so some real impediments. Like he's and I think that's what made the original Rocky so powerful, was he just gets beaten to a pulp but keeps going, and that was a big part of the story. Of course, and from a reality standpoint, once you're starting to be beaten and the momentum's shifted against you, shifting it back is very difficult.
Oh my
Chances are it's not going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to think of how many punches I've seen Steven Seagal take to the face. It's not many. It's not many at all.
Right. Yeah.
But he's a huge dude as well. I think he's big. 6'5".
Yeah.
Yeah. It's but I think, but you're right with Rocky. My goodness, and I love that with the how dramatic it is. You feel every single punch.
Oh, absolutely. And you look at how many real boxing fights have you ever seen anything like that, where you see a boxer just getting smacked and hit around and his face turned into pulp, and he again and again and again, and come back and actually survive to go to the 10th round or whatever, or even win, because I know in the original Rocky movie he didn't actually win. He just went the distance, which was what he was not predicted to do, which is the dramatic part.
I love that. I really love that he didn't win. It's and then you got the rematch, and then you've got
right, all that good stuff. Yep.
That's storytelling at its finest. I love that.
And from what I hear, when the Rocky movies happened, there was a surge of people that wanted to take up boxing. And this is, I guess, the next topic is going to be that the surge that happens when a powerful story gets told, and people like, I want to live that. I remember what was in Eddie Murphy Raw, that he did that bit about how these Italians would go see Rocky and they'd come out and they'd be all puffed up like they're Mr. Tough Guy, and there's certainly that factor of you feel a bit of the power of that character because you connected to it, even though you have no skill whatsoever. You've got nothing to back it up at all, and that's kind of the dangerous part, right? And I read something many years ago from a psychological source on psychology, and it said that the brain, when it sees something, it doesn't know whether it's true or not. It can't really discern it. When you see something on a screen and it looks plausible, your brain will say, well, that's like seeing it live, which means you just witnessed that. It must work that way. And of course, watching like Bugs Bunny cartoons, that does not apply. But when you see real people doing a plausible fight scene, your brain kind of, in the back of it, it goes, all right, well, that's reality. Even though your forebrain can go, well, I get that it's actors and it's probably scripted and all that stuff, but it's that lizard brain in the back that says, I saw this and it could work. And that's a dangerous thing with expectations of what martial arts can do.
You're absolutely right, and I think with following on from that, it's if I were to say describe eating a lemon to you, you
Mhm.
bite into the lemon and you feel all the juices in your mouth. I'm already tearing up now, just
Yeah,
talking about it.
exactly.
So our brains don't really know what's real and what's not. So it's like I don't think so. From a more holistic health point of view, I always think it's important to be careful with what we feed ourselves and how we think.
Mhm.
So it's like you know that's why I think virtual reality is a good tool. And I think when you have, there was a study that was done when you had these Olympic athletes lying down. They had these sophisticated, uh, you know, machinery hooked up to them.
Mhm.
They had to visualize running A to B, and they didn't move. But they found that what they found was when they ran the race from A to B in their heads, every muscle involved with that run activated.
Really?
So
Okay.
there is all kinds of uh, there is all kinds of research to prove that visualization is
Mhm.
very important. It's very valid. It's like when I used to train the Saudi Taekwondo guys. What I would be doing would be, as my role as a psychologist would be, say, look, okay, you know, how you train is one way, but as soon as you walk onto the mats to face this other guy, you feel another way. So, you've got an audience watching you. So, put some headphones on. Okay, listen to crowd noises. Okay,
Mhm.
emulate the whole experience,
Right.
and then you're acclimatizing yourself to those conditions already. It's so that helps them to get used to that kind of environment. And I
Sure.
think having that kind of visualization, my goodness, it's so powerful. And I think if you do, I think the baseball leagues in the US they implemented virtual reality to its
Mhm.
athletes. They found that after maybe I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, their
Mhm.
decision making increased by 30%,
Wow.
which is phenomenal. I
It
think
is. Yeah.
yeah. So it's I'm still working on a VR project here. It's slow and I need funding, but
Sure.
but back to what you were saying. I think I have come out of every single martial arts film that I've ever watched, or every single fight scene that I've ever watched. As soon as I walk out, my skill level suddenly increased dramatically. So suddenly, I'm like, oh, I can take on the world and
Right. Yep.
everything. Oh,
Exactly. And that's over here. I don't know what it's like over there, but one of the most popular entertainment things over here is professional wrestling. And
yes.
there was I mean the crowds are huge. It's really a phenomenon. And you see more and more videos of kids that are in their backyard and they're doing flying suplexes on their brother, or throwing him on a table or hitting him with a chair, all the stuff that they see in there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's has a lot to do with it. They see these things and they say, oh, I can do that. And they go out and their mother has a heart attack and they look out the back window and see what their kids are doing.
Mm.
But it makes me wonder, there aren't any wrestling schools that pop up because the popularity of these crowds watching wrestling and wanting to say, I want to go be a wrestler.
Mm.
Whereas karate schools or other martial arts schools do get that wave of popularity when they see these things in action.
Yeah.
And to me, I do have a great deal of respect for professional wrestlers. As athletes, they are, I think, second to none. And what they do is absolutely incredible,
Yeah.
regardless of whether or not the drama has been scripted. And I don't blame them for having scripted drama,
No, of
because
course.
that is what creates the audience attraction, the draw. And this goes back into the 50s. And
Mm.
a lot of I actually heard a friend of mine is big in not only a martial artist but a historian. And I asked him one day, I said, how in the world did professional wrestling ever evolve into an entertainment? And he told me, he said, back in the day, in the mid 20th century, when you had traveling circuses and they had usually a strongman or a wrestler, and one of the attractions was, you're a big farm dude, young guy, throw hay bales all day long. You think you got something, and the strongman will say, hey, come and wrestle me for a nickel. And if you win, here's your prize. You get,
Mm.
$1 or something like that. But if I win, I keep your money.
Yeah.
And these wrestlers every night would wrestle a line of these huge farm boys. And the bigger they are, the more they think oh yeah, I can take this guy. I'm as big as he is or whatever. And so what would happen, these traveling circuses would get their champion, their wrestler guy. And when they would meet, usually in private, they'd say, all right, let's wrestle. Because, martial artists want to do their thing. Wrestlers want to wrestle, boxers want to box. If they get another boxer, it's like, hey, let's play.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would do a match and they'd figure out who the winner was. Well, nobody would see it. So what they would do to attract the crowd is they'd say, let's go recreate this for the crowd. So they'd recreate how the match went, and they would recreate who won. And they would just do this show repeatedly. So they were being actors. They turned themselves from wrestlers into actors to present to a crowd. And then it sort of grew from there, into what we now know is, of course, it evolved like crazy,
Of course.
into the presentation that was professional wrestling. I thought that was an interesting story because, where did this stuff come from? What are the origins? It's always a more interesting story than you think it was. It didn't just pop out of nowhere.
No.
But it also answers to me the question of, well, why does it seem to be scripted? Because even as a kid, I could tell, like, this doesn't look exactly like two people that are absolutely trying to dominate one another. There's something, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But you can tell a little bit of hesitation here, a little bit of letting this thing happen there. It's still entertaining. You don't, completely throw cold water on it, but you also know in the back of your head, like, okay, there's something a little odd here.
It's true. I mean, it's like when you've got someone like Brock Lesnar and everything, who was a college wrestler.
Yeah.
Apparently he was a very good one as well.
Very successful. Yeah, he was.
And then got into MMA. And then you've got someone like Dave Batista, who has a background in Filipino martial arts. And, some of the stuff I've seen him do, he's phenomenal. He's really, really good. And I think he did a cage fight as well, which I believe he won. Though, yeah, I think a lot of those professional wrestlers, they can probably handle themselves pretty well.
Oh yeah. I mean, just the raw physicality is not to be underestimated. If you take two people that had no training and you had one that was 80 pounds of muscle above the other one, chances are the bigger guy's going to get it, or the one who's got more training. Even you take somebody like a semi-pro soccer player who faces somebody who's just an average person without any martial art training, I'm going to give it to the soccer player because that physicality is a factor.
Absolutely. I think athleticism and the physicality and everything, and just knowing the body,
right.
It's like you've got the UFC fighter George St. Pierre, for instance. He does a lot of gymnastics.
Yeah.
And as a gymnast, I think being a gymnast or gymnastics certainly allows you to makes you more of a well-rounded athlete.
Yeah.
It's so when I was a kid, some of my friends were gymnasts and they seemed to be good at everything, annoyingly.
Yes.
They were good at every single sport. And they were they were so physically core, their core was so strong as well. And it's like, oh man, that's amazing,
Yeah. Another field is because gymnasts are I think very underrated for their ability to pick physical things up like that. And you could call it a body discipline or awareness of your body.
Yes.
Speaking of which, another one is dancers. I think dancers are highly underrated for their athletes, definitely. And of course it depends on the style of dancing, but generally dancers have got a lot more physicality than you give him credit for. In fact, as I understand it, Conor McGregor was a dancer before he got into martial arts. And one that I remember spotting back in the day was Jean-Claude Van Damme. And
I was just thinking that.
And I remember seeing Bloodsport and remember that spinning kick that he did. As soon as that other leg went straight out the other direction, I said, that's a dancer. Yeah. He comes from a dancer, because no martial artist kicks with both legs out like that. They'll tuck the other one in when they do that spinning kick. And I of course, at the time there wasn't the internet and whatnot, but I went to kind of sniff around, like, am I right? Was he a dancer? And he kind of or he or his publicist or whoever kind of tried to obscure his background, but like 15-20 years later it came out, sure enough, he has a dancing background. And I'm like, I knew it. Because you could spot that. But the physicality was, I mean, unmistakable. Like you could not, there's nothing about him that you could pick on for a lack of, you know, physical capability. He was really phenomenal.
Because you've got like I did a ballet class once.
Okay.
Once.
I'd pay to see that.
It was no joke. Like I mean, I've always been flexible. I can do the splits, I can do this, but you know, my flexibility did not prepare me for what was to come. And you know, my calves have never ached so much. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
I think the next day I ate for weeks. But I think with that's the thing with Jean-Claude Van Damme. I mean, like he had the flexibility of being a dancer, and you see the control he has with his kicks. Even now, you know,
it's a severe level of body discipline.
Oh, it's fantastic, and it's like I went through a phase, which I'm not ashamed to admit online, where I watched a show called Dance Moms, which
I'm not familiar
just
with
a
that
reality show about these kids who do competitive dance competitions, and you get to see all the drama with the mothers and everything. It's crazy. It's very well edited. I thought it was trash to begin with, and then the next day I found myself watching it again. I thought, oof. But then you know, you appreciate the art form so much of dance, and it's like when I used to do dance classes, I struggled because for me as a martial artist, every move I do requires a purpose. There's a reason why I'm doing this particular move at this time. So I'm sidestepping this way, I'm doing this, and I would say to the instructor, okay, why am I doing this? And she would get frustrated at me because she says, well, you know, this, you don't need a reason. You know, this is just what feels right. This is So I found watching people dance, doing dance myself, I need to transcend that barrier that there didn't need to be a reason for it. You just had to feel right, you know. And I think that's helped me with my martial arts in that, okay, you know, this is free flow, you know, it's like, and I think as martial artists, okay, yeah, but why are you doing this technique? You know, why does this have to be here? You know what I mean? And you start
There's not a lot of strategy to dance, whereas there is with to fighting.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, there is. And I think it's so important that we are able to free ourselves from that. You know, it's like when we're doing, I did some salsa dancing and everything. Some of the transitions when you're going underneath someone's arm and you're spinning around, I thought that looks great, but why? You know, and once I got over that, you know, it took a little while for me to adjust. It's like, oh, okay, actually, this feels great because all I have to do is switch this off, you know, and be less resistant, you know, because the instructor used to say, "You're so tense." I said, "I know."
And you think to yourself, if I was teaching a student, I'd probably be telling them the same thing. You got to relax. You know, it's not easy going into a new realm and relaxing. It's very, very difficult. Yeah, exactly.
So true. And you know, it's I prefer watching it to doing it. Just because when on the show on Dance Moms, you know, you've got these girls who are so incredibly gifted. You know, they're so the timing is perfect, their flexibility, you know, some of the jumps they're doing. Oh my goodness, it's just incredible to watch. And when you watch like a gymnastics floor routine, it's like, you know, it's and you know, sometimes you know, and back to films though, it's like sometimes if I'm like, no, that technique's wrong, that and I'm saying that from sat in the couch, you know, I'm sat in the couch, you know, saying, nah, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and you know, I wonder, because what we're kind of talking about is the wave of people that come in with their interest having seen a movie. And I think that actually affects the martial art. If there are enough people, it can affect it in the fact that if an instructor or the art itself, or, you know, represented by instructors, want to fulfill the expectation of this wave of people that come in, they'll change the art in order to fulfill that. And I think that if there was a curse to the popularity of martial arts coming through movies and TV shows and entertainment, that could be a big one, along with the other one, which is having instructors that aren't quite qualified want to fill the demand of the people that want to get trained in it, and they start coming in, and then, you know, the watering down that happens. And I think that's probably the big one. But
you're absolutely spot on the money, you know, right on the money there. You know, it's like I'm sure you've had it before. You know, so oh, this is my friend Tristan. You know, he does a lot of martial arts, and then someone says, "Cool, show me something."
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Show me a jump split kick, or
Right.
show me a jump split somersault kick. You're like, yeah, because you know, I played
do
Street
something
Fighter.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
They want to see something amazing. Exactly.
yeah. It's like,
Um,
you know, someone I met someone who said, "Oh yeah, you know, you do martial arts." I'm like, "Yeah, I do." He goes, "Oh well, you know, I've just finished playing, you know, Tekken or Street Fighter or Soul Calibur. You know, can you do any of that stuff?" I'm like, ah. And there's no upside either, because
right.
if you can do it, they kind of expect it. Oh, that's pretty cool, yeah, because the character I play can do that as well. Do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't do it, well, you know,
Right. And,
and if
yeah,
and if you
whatever.
manage to do it and
Yeah.
you didn't land the jump, you just look silly. It's
Exactly. You're standing there with somebody and they're expecting to see the, you know, a John Wick deal, you know, and
yeah,
because that's the measure. And I think that this is partially a curse. I guess a third curse would be, as people watch videos on YouTube and they watch not only movies but demonstrations and stuff, and they get set in their head like they want this level of spectacular.
yeah,
And if that's the expectation for what they want of their own training or what they want of their instructor or their art, they're going to be kind of let down. And to me,
yes,
I think that's an expectation that we instructors will have a hard time managing, to say, I'm sorry, but the thing that you're expecting, I can't deliver. In fact, I had
yes,
an incident a couple of years ago. A woman came in with her daughter who was 17, 18 years old, and she was getting ready to go to college. And this mother came in and said, you know, I want you to train my daughter in self-defense, and I want you to train her to deal with somebody who's attacking with a knife and attacking with a gun. And she's leaving for college in 6 weeks. And oh, by the way, she's very busy and can maybe do one class a week. And I just had to tell her, like, I'm sorry, but I mean, I can, in that time, I can give her just a little bit, but what you're wanting takes years of dedicated training to get, you know, and even then it's, you know, you're talking about knives and guns. That's in your impossible zone. And but you know, that expectation was there,
yeah,
and I'm
of
glad that
course.
she was right up front with it, that's what she wanted, and I could just tell her, sorry, but that's just
Yeah,
not
you
possible.
absolutely have to manage those expectations. It's like, um, you hear it where someone took their first karate class, for instance, and then get into a fight and get their ass handed to them, and it's like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, you know, so yeah, well, you know, karate's useless.
Right.
One lesson, but
Right. Exactly.
it takes years and tears, as you know. It's
Hmm. Yep.
and nothing comes easy.
No.
It's so difficult, and I
Mhm.
think when you know, because I know a lot of people who get into martial arts specifically for films, specific,
Okay.
you know, specifically for these reasons, you know, for the social aspects and everything.
Hmm.
Hey, that's great, but I think it's important to be clear as to why you want to train. And it's like
Hmm.
there's a film called The Art of Self-Defense,
I've heard of
with
it. Yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg. It's a strange film, very very strange film.
Okay.
So then, but the you know the karate instructor said, okay, you know, what is your reason for starting to train? You know, and some people might be embarrassed to explain why that
Hmm.
they want to get. You know, oh yeah, I just want to do it for the fitness element, or but maybe it's because they actually had issues in the past of
Hmm.
bullying or whatever. You know, so I think you know it's being honest, you know, about why we want to train, and we as instructors have to be just as honest and transparent. Say, look, I'm gonna be honest. This is not in my remit, and I'm not going to sell you a product that I don't believe in myself.
Hmm.
And it's like, you know, if say I said to you, hey Tristan, my son wants to do UFC, you know, wants to get into MMA, and you know, I want you to train for it. It's like, you know, and you're like, okay, well, when's the fight? And it's like, well, it's in a month.
Mhm.
you, you know what I mean? It's like,
Sure.
oh, no, we have to be so honest and realistic and transparent about these things.
Mhm.
And I've certainly turned away students before, or potential students before, because they were after something that I wasn't particularly, it's not something that I wanted to, it's like
Right.
someone said to me, look, I've got a boxing match coming up. Can you coach me? I said, look, I can hold some pads for you, okay, and I can maybe help you with a few techniques here and there. But yeah, you're going to be fighting someone who's going to be boxing you. You know what I mean? I think it's good for you to be in that environment with other boxers.
Right.
So here's a list of other boxing instructors. Yeah, but I want to train with you. I
Mhm.
said, yeah, but it's so
Well, that's
it's
the
like,
thing, and I know that from I have my own dojo. I even feel that draw. I don't want to turn away somebody,
yeah,
but yet you cannot deceive or
no,
mislead or, you know, allow somebody to become your student when you don't believe that you're the best person that they can
yeah,
get to fulfill their needs.
sure,
And that's one of those, even when I opened my dojo, I really had to think through and like, okay, how am I going to handle this? And
yes,
right away it occurred to me, like, somebody comes to me, I want to get them the best result possible, and
yes,
if I'm not the guy to fulfill it, I will find somebody that will
yes,
help them that way. Like, that to me,
absolutely,
that's what integrity is. When you don't want to just take their money and say, yeah, you should join our program. I mean, everybody's run across that slimy sales guy that says, oh, I can sell you everything, whatever you need, I got it. And
yeah.
they'll basically start to steer you into, you know being the solution you need because they want to make that sale. And
Oh, I, it's crazy. I knew a kid whose dad pushed him, you know, really hard. His dad was, part of me feels that his dad was living through his kid. It's like,
sure, yeah, that happens.
and yeah, so the kid would, he would train hard, but he trained with so many other people. And then he met I think the dad found some guy to teach him kickboxing and everything. And you know, yeah, it's like, and this instructor said to him, look, I don't do this, but one of my other friends, he
Hmm.
does do kickboxing, he does teach it, so maybe you could speak to him.
Hmm.
And then that instructor then called the first one and said, hey man, thanks for sending that kid over to me. I've just taken 3,000 pounds off the dad, so yeah, I'm on holiday now. It's like,
That's right. Yeah,
great.
that's
And I think it's, unfortunately, there is a lot of malpractice in what we do.
right.
It's, people who will be disingenuous about what it is they do and how good they are at what they profess to
Right.
do. It's like, and I think that is, and you get it in every industry, really. You get
Oh
it in
yeah,
every single
absolutely.
industry. And I think so long as, I mean, here in Oxford where I live, I've got like a group of instructors who are, group of instructors that I care about, who I trust.
Hmm.
It's like one of them is, he's like uh, he kind of, he's of a similar build to me, but his style is pure conditioning.
Mm.
So he it hurts me to hit him, for instance.
Sure.
So I'll get students who come to me and say, I really want to do some conditioning. So I've seen you on the Master Wong videos and everything.
Mhm.
The first thing I always say, look, so conditioning, yeah, I do it, but I'm not an expert at it. What you
Mhm.
see in the videos is someone asked a question, and me and Master Wong helped to answer that question.
Mhm.
I said, but this is the best guy for it
Sure.
locally. This is the
Right.
best guy that you should contact, and he's my friend, so I can put you in touch. But
Mhm.
so I'm never afraid to defer to someone and refer someone to someone else's expertise.
Mhm.
I think it's important for us to be open enough to do that. It's like we
Sure.
don't have all the answers, and
Yep.
for sure, it's like if it's something like conditioning, then the last thing I want to be doing or thinking is, does my insurance cover this?
Yeah, there's always that factor. Yep.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
it as I think about it too, the I've gotten asked so many times, like, "Oh, I've been thinking about getting into martial arts, and you're a martial artist, so tell me about what would be a good art for me, or what do you think, or here's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about taking up this art. Do you think it would be a good fit?"
mm,
And one of the things that I tell everybody is, it's just like like finding a good auto mechanic or finding a good physician. There are good ones out there. There are bad ones out there.
Yep.
There are horrible ones out there. Just be ready to manage your experience. You know,
Yes.
do your best and realize you might come across a dojo or an instructor that's not a fit for you. You might come across a total nut job that is, you should, you know, run, not walk
Yep.
away from them. But keep looking for the one that is the good fit. Keep
Yes.
looking for the one that is going to get you what you are looking for. And also realize that as you train and as you grow, you might very well need other mentors to augment what that person is teaching you. Like, this is a journey, not just I'm going to go like find a restaurant because I'm looking for a great steak and then it's done. Like, it doesn't, it's far more comprehensive than that.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know, but I think that, you know, and I'm sure it's probably similar there, but people here in the US are caught in this consumer culture thing. Like, when they go look for an art, they look for, kind of like they're buying a car. Does it have, you know, power windows? Does it have power seats? Does it lever, you know, they're looking for the features to buy the best thing, and they want to compare one to the other.
Yeah.
And inevitably what I advise people is, martial arts don't work the same way. You're not just buying a set of techniques or anything like that. You're actually going through a growth experience. And I think, you know, in taking people that are interested from watching movies and martial arts, and they think, hey, I want to be physical like this. There's a physical part of my life that's not being fulfilled. Martial arts is a great way to fulfill that. In fact,
Absolutely.
I think it's far better than a lot of just plain old exercising, which is boring, you know, mind-numbingly boring. It's mentally engaging as well as physically engaging, but it really, experience is so dependent on what that dojo is doing and what that instructor is doing, and it really has very little to do with the art. Most martial arts are great in their way.
Yeah.
Obviously, finding one that fits your interest is crucial, but that the instructor and the group is doing it in the way that's what's going to fulfill you. And
I completely
that can
agree.
be kind of a long explanation for somebody that's like, well, just tell me what the best martial art is, or tell me what the most, you know, what the most kick-ass instructor is. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah.
When they get into it, they'll realize, or they'll come back and say, you know, you were right.
Mhm.
And I did find a good fit, or I didn't, and I'm still looking, but the formula is the same.
Yes.
And that's taking, I guess, the level of sophistication up a notch a bit for what to look for and what to expect.
You can't, and I think, you know, no one person has all the answers. You know, I think,
Correct. Yep.
especially for you, it's like, people might not agree with my teaching style, so they find something else that resonates with them better. You know, hey, that's fine. You know, I think whilst we all are on a martial journey, I think we're all still walking slightly different paths. So, you know,
Right.
different levels of understanding. It's
Mhm.
like someone will say to me, "Oh, you know, Aikido really doesn't work." I said, "Well, you know, actually, when you're working in security and you've got multiple attackers coming at you,
Mhm.
it's very useful. It is. The principles of Aikido are fantastic. You know, it really really works. But it's like, you know, if I was just doing boxing, for instance, against
Mhm.
multiple attackers, then it's, you know,
Right.
you know, I'm concentrating on one person and I get hit the back of the head. So, you know,
Mhm.
I think, you know, it's important for us to expose ourselves to a world, because more of the martial arts, just because I feel that, a lot of people who are starting out, they don't know what they don't know. You know,
Right.
it's,
That's so
so
true.
yeah, and I think, the more I learn, the more I realize there is to learn. You know, I'm looking at stuff thinking, heck, I thought I was getting better. I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, yeah,
Yeah.
and I think we have to be so, open-minded to where we are at the moment. You know, it's like when I watch someone do something phenomenal, you know, sometimes I might think, you know, yeah, that's not practical. But at the same time, I'm also thinking everything I can do now seemed impossible a few years ago.
Right.
And so who knows where I'll be in the future? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I think, so, and I say that to you know, people who are just coming in. Look, you know, go easy on yourself. Don't have these crazy expectations that you need to meet. You know, it's like,
Right.
I'm not going to make crazy promises and say, look, in 2 weeks from now, you train with me once a week for 2 weeks. That's 2 hours. Okay. Oh, you'll be the next such and such champion or whatever. Nah, and I think how it's branded as well, how you market yourself and everything, it's got to be so honest, and I think because I've had actors who want to do martial arts with me and they say, can I come to your classes? You can, but bearing in mind this is two different things. I'll teach one thing, you're looking for something else. That's something you and I can do separately somewhere else.
Mhm.
And I have a skill set that would be applicable to what they want to do, because I work in the industry.
Mhm.
However, you know, if I didn't have any film experience whatsoever, and someone wanted to learn screen fighting, I would be the last person that you want to come to. It's yeah, but
Yeah.
it's so honesty, transparency. We need all those things, and it's very important.
And I agree with you, especially that I mean, honesty is a fundamental virtue of a good society. You can't have deceit and have, a stable culture. But the transparency thing, and I think that one of the stresses that's going on with the martial arts is that YouTube and this it's forcing martial arts to be transparent. It is showing things that I think a lot of martial artists reel from the honesty that's shared. And I personally see that as an opportunity for a martial art or for an instructor or for a practitioner to step up and say, okay, there's a deficiency here. I need to fill this in my art. And I suppose this is probably going to be a topic for another podcast. We could keep going, but I do think that the movies created those super high, multi-million-dollar commercials for martial arts. And that was from the 70s, even through to today. But the transparency that's coming behind it, which is, okay, what does the art actually deliver?
Yes.
I think audiences are starting to get more sophisticated to understand, yes, I'm not going to be John Wick through my martial art training, but what am I actually looking for? What's a good art that's going to be a good fit for me?
Yes.
And be able to browse on YouTube and find, what these arts look like, how they train. There's so many great videos that show how instructors will teach technique. Not to say that they're necessarily looking at the technique, although that's probably something they're looking at, but also what it's like to have a teacher show you and say, here's how a technique goes, or here's how we learn. Like, to me, that's a great thing for the martial arts, and also for the instructors who can now compare how they teach to how somebody else who's made it a video teaches and say, hey, that's a good way to teach this. I know that's affected how I teach it, because I love studying not only the martial art, but I love watching how instructors connect to their students.
Yeah.
And how the method they use to guide a student into learning a technique, because there's a bad way to do it and there's a good way to do it, and somewhere in between.
Yes.
And not only do I want to be a great martial artist, I want to be a great teacher. And so, with that journey, how do you present this in a way that just clicks with people and they understand it? There's transparency is huge.
You're absolutely right. It's like some of the best fighters are not the best instructors.
True.
It's like one of my friends who I regard to be a fantastic instructor.
Mm-hmm.
He was not a natural, should we say?
Mm-hmm.
It's like his coordination was a bit off, his flexibility wasn't that great, and then he's had to work so hard to get all those things.
Sure.
So when he teaches the way he wishes he was taught. You know what I mean? It's like,
yep. I think that we all do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's, yeah.
Yeah. And the patience he has, he's like, right, okay, if that doesn't work, what you can do is this way. That's what I did when I first started. I thought, oh, good on you. It's
sure.
Because I think you get some guys who are a bit more, say, who had a natural affinity, natural talent for this. It's like you tell them to break down exactly what they just did naturally. It's like,
I've had that. I mean, back when I was fighting, I would talk with fighters that were phenomenally talented, and I was friends with a lot of them, and we'd sit down and have a beer, and I'd say, all right, I want you to tell me how you set this up and how you did it. And they exactly like that, like, I just do it. know, and they can't explain it at all. And my asking that question, of course, because I was friends with them for years,
Of course.
I'd see the growth as they'd say, you know, that was a good question. I should probably think about how I do that. Why does it work? What do I do specifically that makes that work correctly? And how do I spot if it's not going that way? And why don't I do it, you know, under different conditions? And it's yet another aspect of growth.
Yeah,
Of
I completely
personal
agree.
growth as a martial artist or a competitor. It's interesting to see somebody though that is so incredibly talented, like top of their game. And when you ask them, how do you do it? They're like, I don't know. This is kind of funny.
It's true, you know, and I think, you know, it's like if you say have Mike Tyson, you know, it's you know, if I say Mike Tyson is my coach, okay, cool. Well, he's been there, done that. Okay, but then you look at him as an instructor. Well, it's like you look at his instructor, Cus D'Amato.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you know, you know, I'm not too sure how good Cus was as a boxer. Okay,
right. He had, as I remember his record, he had one fight which he lost, and I believe he suffered an injury. I don't know if it was during the fight or shortly afterwards that ended his boxing career.
Right.
But yeah, and I don't know about the loss. I have no idea what the story of that fight was. But I mean, in terms of a trainer and a coach, he was second to none. In fact, the system that he developed, in my opinion, is probably the most impressive system of hand-to-hand combat probably ever created. Like that guy was a genius, and so you cannot sell that short at all.
No, absolutely.
And tremendous in character. Like when you hear him talk about training and developing young men and the character and integrity that he came, I mean, sterling in terms of his selflessness and what he created. It's
amazing, isn't it? You know,
yeah, he's one of my heroes.
Yeah, I love him, and I think when you have certainly, I know a lot of top fighters and everything. It's like, and you know, they come and teach a seminar and everything. This is what I do. You know, it's like, yeah, but you know, these guys are not on the same kind of level. That's why you're here. You know?
Sure.
And it's like, you know, that's something I had to learn when I was younger. If I was a guest instructor, you know, you are here. Okay, you cannot assume that they know what you know. That's why they're there, to learn what you know. So you have to explain it, you know, and you got the pace of the slowest person if you can and everything, and you work with them. And it's not like this is all the information. Okay, go practice and come back to me, and I'll build on that. You know, it's a you know, of course there's an element of that, but it's like you want to nurture that relationship with them. You know, you want to nurture that. You want to, yeah, it's like guiding people as well. I think that's so important to be able to, as an instructor anyway, because I want my students to reflect well on me. You know, it's
absolutely.
I had a student, I think it was a couple of years ago, you know, it's like, oh, you know, someone got in his face and everything. And I said, oh, what happened? He goes, well, I managed to, you know, I found out why he was so upset. It was a massive misunderstanding. And, you know, he shook my hand, apologized, and we walked our separate ways. I thought,
that's a win.
Fantastic. I said, yeah, he said, I knew fighting was the last resort. And part of me was hoping that he would try something, but I'm glad nothing happened. I was like, yeah, me too. It's a
perfect attitude. Exactly. You don't want it, but you're ready if it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing.
I mean, my personal philosophy is I train when I don't want to, so that I can fight when I have to.
Right.
But only when I absolutely have to, when I've exhausted all other options. And it's and I think it's, you know, most fights happen of a time of their choosing, not yours, unless you're the one picking the fight. But
which we shouldn't be.
No,
don't be that guy.
No, absolutely not. It's you know, I think it's an episode of Friends. I think when Ross goes to the self-defense class and he says, "Can you teach me how to attack someone?" The instructor says, "Wait." The instructor says, "Wait, you want me to teach you how to attack women?" Like, and
oh, funny.
Oh dear.
Well, to bring this back around, there's one actual topic I wanted to discuss, and this is related to Bruce Lee, and I remember him talking about, and I forget if I read this or if I heard him say this, but I think I read it, where he said, what I showed in my movies was not what I created with Jeet Kune Do, because then this brings us back to that movie thing. The entertainment that he showed was the entertainment. What he wanted for his art was a very efficient art that anybody could learn and do. And even he acknowledged that he was a physical specimen. Like, he could physically do what others could not do. And he said, I didn't want Jeet Kune Do to be something that you had to have my kind of physicality in order to be able to do. And I think that the point I wanted to bring up was, and I kind of asked this question for people to think about, if it had not been for Bruce Lee being a big movie star, would Jeet Kune Do, which I think is a very innovative art, would it have become as popular as it did? I don't think it would have, but I have so much regard for how diligent Bruce Lee was in evolving Wing Chun and filling in the holes that it had, that he was trying to address. And he did such a great job of it that I think Jeet Kune Do would be a solid art all on its own without that.
Yes.
But it comes down to the marketing. I don't know what his marketing would have been like, but I mean, obviously with his movies, it was such a marketing success, and his name.
True. I mean, I am certain that Wing Chun grew in popularity because of the Ip Man films.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
well, it resurged. I think it kind of started to disappear, and then those movies brought it back.
It's like, what you said about Rocky, for instance. It's like, how many people want to take up boxing after that? It's and I think with Jeet Kune Do, I mean, I love the concept, and I feel that everyone's Jeet Kune Do should look different anyway. So it's like, I know full well that I can't move the way Bruce Lee does. And I'm,
I don't think anybody could. He's so amazing.
Right. So I think it's like, I'm also sure that because I have 100 pounds on him, for instance, he wouldn't be able to do things as easily as I could,
right.
Because I have that weight behind me or whatever. I have other attributes.
Sure.
And I think, it's learning your strengths and playing and working on those weaknesses as well. It's, but for sure, I think when you see films like, I think now you get MMA films like, I think it's called Warrior with Tom Hardy, and I think the best MMA film I ever saw was Here Comes the Boom with Kevin James. It's a comedy, but it's it's very tongue in cheek. It is brilliant, but and I think with, of course, that kind of stuff is going to increase the popularity of, it's like, I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now is it's a huge part of it was a part of culture now. I mean, there's an episode of The Simpsons where a character actually refers, well, I know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So once it's in The Simpsons, it's part of our everyday vernacular.
It's solidified. It's been set in stone.
Yeah. And I think for sure, I mean, I know a load of guys who do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because they've seen it in films, and it's, they see it in UFC and everything. It's like, okay, and hey, awesome. It's like, if there's a way for you that inspires you to get into martial arts, I think that's great. I think from that point onwards, you then need to manage your expectations. I much prefer that to someone getting bullied to do martial arts. You know what I mean? It's which is probably how a lot of people started with martial arts to begin with. It's like I've been watching a lot of Cobra Kai.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, Cobra Kai is great.
Oh my god! I'm gonna be honest though. I don't watch it for the fight scenes.
No. It's the fight scenes are not the big draw of Cobra.
No, sure. Just the storytelling is just that's something else. It's like for me, it's at the point where I don't know if I should say this on camera, but it's like the storytelling's so good that the fighting is secondary. It's like, even if it's a move that I don't think is particularly great, hey, I can see why they put it in. I can feel that kick that he just took to the face. Oh, dude.
Well, and just to realize like what you're seeing, and I think this is an audience sophistication thing, is just realize it's a fantasy. You're being told a fanciful story, and we need the story of our heroes. We need the story
Yes.
of our villains. We need the story of the drama between the heroes and the villains. Like, this is a part of humanity that is always going to be there. It should be there. We need that illusion and that the willing suspension of disbelief that needs to be a part of it. But we have to be careful of trying to take that fantasy realm into the reality realm. It can inspire us. It can motivate us. Those are fantastic things, but it's not a one-to-one translation.
No. And it's very, very few occurrences in real life situations have ever gone 100% my way, should we say.
Right.
It's like, and it's like, I would practice this technique. I think years ago I had this spinning sidekick, which was perfect. It was
Nice.
just, and every time I'd spar people, pow, they just never see it coming. It was just there.
Right.
And I found myself in a situation, and I was too keen to do it, and I missed.
Okay.
I missed. Now, hey, I won the fight, but
right.
I will forever be that guy who tried a spinning sidekick and missed it. I mean, it's hey, fine, you live and learn, but it's.
And when I think of the spinning sidekick, I think of Benny the Jet. Like, that guy was, if anybody could do it like clockwork, it was him. And he is another one of my heroes, and from the fighting realm, but he was also in the movies. I mean,
yes, he was.
I mean, and that's,
Benny the Jet. I mean, like, he, for me, he is probably one of the very few people who can call themselves a genuine world champion. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't even call himself that. It's other people who bestowed that title to him. But he fought everyone and anyone. It's like, and he was so good. It's like, even today, when you watch him teaching and everything, I love his approach. He's so personable. It's like, he looks a certain way, but when you hear him talk, he's so articulate and everything, and that's a gentleman.
He's so genuine and humble too. I really like how, I mean, he's the perfect example of a gentleman warrior, in my opinion.
Fantastic.
He has the kind of character I wish that more martial artists had, and because I've run into probably the same thing you have. There's some egomaniacs out there and some nut jobs, but Benny comes across with that genuine caring about other people. He is generous and kind, and I've never met him in person, but everything that I've seen of him and heard from people that have met him are like, he is a gentleman of the first order, and like that's a good representative for what martial arts should be.
I completely agree, and I think as martial artists, the fighting element is just one aspect of who you should be. It's such a you train for the fighting, but the martial arts principles should apply to every part of your life. And I think someone like Benny the Jet, he just epitomizes that, and
he does.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I know people who train with Chuck Norris as well, and they say Chuck is just a great guy.
I've heard the same thing. Like, a total gentleman.
And it's like Dolph Lundgren, who is, physically just a huge fella, and he's got that balance of intellectual. He's so intellectual, and also how he comes across as well. I mean, he is a gentleman.
I think he's even like a doctor of astrophysics or something too on top of it. Like, he's just amazing.
I mean, I think it was, like, I think he did like chemical engineering as well.
I think you're right.
It was, hey, that's tough. I met Jet Li in 2000. So Jet Li was I was 11 or 12 at the time, and he was one of the most humble people I've ever met. And it's like, I'm expecting, like, as a kid, you're expecting, this guy's your hero. You've seen him like beat so many people in all his films and everything. He's taken on 50 people, and then he walks in, and he is the nicest person. He is the nicest person, and calm, and just so humble that there are people there who want to talk to him and interact with him. And I think I was the youngest guy there, which was awesome.
Nice.
At the time, and it was like, hey, look, what I do on films, that I'm just a normal guy. I've got some skills, but those skills go into what I do with movies. And then,
Sure.
he was so gentle, kind, and then you hear in interviews when he did for Cradle to the Grave when he's fighting these cage fighters, like, oh, who would win in the fight, you or these cage fighters? Oh, yeah, you serious? Those guys will crush me. Yeah, no, those guys will win.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know anyone who dislikes him. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think that's a mark. I mean, that's a mark of a true character. He's got no one to compete with. It's like, um, and I think if we can hold ourselves to that similar kind of standard where hey, you got nothing to prove. It's of course if you're a competitive fighter, then it's different. I will say, but someone like Jet Li, I mean, that inspired me beyond belief. Where he was just a normal guy, and martial arts was his life. It's a part of his life, but a fighter doesn't define who he is. You know what I mean? It's
well, and I think that as people watch the movies, the fantasy part that comes in is that the good guy is always going to win. And if there was one reality that you need to accept, is that's not always the case, because we're always the good guy. No matter who you are, you always view yourself as the good guy.
Absolutely.
But violence does not work on the same. That the good guy is going to win when you're watching a movie.
Yes.
Maybe not in the beginning, because he gets his ass beat, and then he comes back and trains up and goes and defeats the villain. But this is one of those things that needs to get torn down, is that anything can happen in a violent encounter, and you cannot count on being the superhero, the Achilles, or the one who always prevails.
I mean, redemption is a huge element. I mean, it's like Dark Knight Rises with Batman fighting Bane. It's actually the same story as Rocky fighting Clubber Lang. It's actually the same story.
Right.
He's this guy who's on top. He's like the superhero, gets beaten by Bane, gets beaten by Clubber Lang. Both of them go into some kind of solitary confinement, or where they have to train up and then come back and redeem themselves. It's essentially the same story, but it doesn't make me love it less.
Right.
And of course,
there's so much to storytelling, the background and the characters, and
we all want that kind of redemption. If we have gone through something traumatic, we always want that kind of redemption. I think films certainly inspires that. So I want to take up martial arts so that I can go back and teach my bully a lesson. It works in films. I mean, in real life, it doesn't always pan out that way. So I think when someone starts a martial arts class, we have to give them that dose of reality, and that that realism. Actually, the last thing you should do is fight back. And if you can teach a bully a lesson, if push comes to shove, great. If you can befriend your bully and everything, hey, great. But it's all about your own personal growth. And I think that's so important. It's not just not making these students into bloodthirsty monsters that just want to fight. It's
well, you've hit the nail on the head here, and I think this is why those stories need to be told, because of that redemption part. I mean, I know I got into martial arts because I was bullied as a kid, and what I didn't like was that feeling of helplessness.
Yeah.
And so I went through that curve. Now, I wasn't inspired by movies. I was inspired by my own life experiences. But that part where, just like you explained in the story, I trained, I learned, I sought out teachers, I trained. It took me a long time, but now when I face a bully, I don't have that feeling of helplessness. I know what I'm capable of. Now, I know that I'm not invincible. That's true. But I also know that if somebody's going to take me down, they are going to have to work really hard, and I'm going to take a piece of their hide. I mean, that's basically it. And to me, facing a bully and getting into a fight and beating them is not what I was training for. It's the confidence to stand there and know that I'm not going to be an easy victim, and that I'm going to be confident. Not that I can, walk into some extremely dangerous place and lay the whole place down, because that's not realistic either. But I don't feel like I'm at the whim of other people.
Yes,
that want to dominate me, and that's really crucial.
you're absolutely right. And I think with any assaults that I've ever experienced,
Mhm.
um, I, whatever I did, I don't probably they probably didn't learn their lesson. No one ever came back for seconds, but
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure that you know they will probably still go out and do that to less able people. You know what I mean? That's the thing. Which is the unfortunate thing. It's like it, if you beat someone, chances are you might not have changed them at all. You would have made them more angry.
Sure.
So it's I think in real life situations, my goodness, these days, and I would never say this when I was younger. Absolutely, like even maybe 10 years ago, I still wouldn't say this. It's like, but now I'm the first person to walk away from a situation
Oh,
that's
sure.
elevating.
Mhm.
It's like it's not the hill I want to die on. It's
Right.
and I think training. I've trained every day for 28 years, every
Mhm.
single day for 28 years. I never skipped a day, and it's
That's an
and I
impressive
think
record.
oh
That's an
yeah.
impressive record.
Oh, thank you. But I mean, it is always train when you don't want to, so you fight when you have to. But it's
Mhm.
like 28 years. The next person, if if I ever get into another physical confrontation, I feel it would be wasted for me to do anything on them. 28 years,
Mhm.
and this, and I blow it all on hitting some drunk guy. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like
Right.
that's. I mean, if I have to restrain or whatever, or just keep myself safe. Okay, fine. But to cause physical damage onto someone like that,
Mhm.
I will get no pleasure from that. It's
Sure.
not a story that I would be proud to tell my students or proud to tell my friends or whatever. And it's
Mhm.
like, I would just rather avoid the hassle completely and the legal ramifications,
Mhm.
and just remove myself from the situation completely. It's
Sure.
especially if I'm with someone I care about as well. If
Mhm.
I'm with, say, a girlfriend or I'm with someone who's less able, then my responsibility extends to them. My capabilities extend to them.
Absolutely. Yep.
If I get into this fight, can I ensure their safety?
Mhm.
If not, why am I fighting? It's like,
Right.
and to be honest, my main concern, not sure I should say this on camera either, but I will. My main concern is what my mother would say.
You can't disappoint mom. Yeah.
Oh, that is the worst thing. It's like
Right.
just oh my goodness. So
Mhm.
it's like every time I used to do every security shift I ever did, my mother would stay up every shift just to
Mm.
make sure I got home okay. It's like
Wow.
the
Yep.
last thing I would ever want to do is do something silly, not just because of you
Mhm.
know what the legal consequences may be,
Right.
but what she would say.
You never want to. Facing a judge is one thing. Having to face mom is another. You got to answer for it.
Oh.
That's great. Um, yeah, and I guess that expectation thing. If you go into martial arts expecting John Wick, James Bond, that sort of thing, Batman, you're going to be let down, and
Yeah,
and I think that if people that go to start training and realize that's not happening and then they quit, I think that's part of the drop off that happens. But
yeah,
um, the ability to train and build confidence in yourself, that is the life changing part of martial art training.
could not
um,
agree more. Yeah.
yeah, and that's, I just had a student this last week tell me, he's like, training here has really changed my life. It's changed my personality for the better.
Wow.
I'm learning to grow as a person. I'm confident where I wasn't before. And he came to me because he he had been confronted by a customer of his who got started to get puff up and started to get physical, and he realized, I have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
This is outside the realm of my abilities. And it's that real world inspiration versus the fantasy inspiration was easier to address. And so it's just one of those things, though, that as people come in, you find out what is your inspiration, what has inspired you. And even if they say, I'm inspired by that the hero I saw, or I want to be able to do these types of things, like, martial art training will get you a part of that, but
Yes.
we have to make sure we're not giving you the distorted part, the
Yes.
bad expectations.
Yeah.
We want to get you the right ones, and that includes, not only the capabilities, but also the character and the judgment, the good judgment that goes with when do you use these tools, not just here are some great tools. So
I completely agree. No, absolutely. I think no, we're definitely on the same page here. It's
yeah.
it,
Well,
you know,
go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh my goodness, it's like I've had a similar conversation with other martial artists before. No, 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 no. It's like, and they have the whole Cobra Kai kind of approach where
Sure.
you preempt it, you strike first. It's
Yeah.
one of my students. Oh, this is not good. So he got into an argument with someone, and he said, "Well, I was certain that he was going to hit me." I said, "So what did you do?" He said, "Oh no, I hit him first." I'm like, I said,
so describe to me this definition of certain. You were certain he was going to hit you.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing is he's a lawyer.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, oh
boy.
Yeah, get a refund or
Yep.
But it's yeah, and he's like, yeah, but when his when this guy's girlfriend was telling me to stop and she was gonna call the police, I thought maybe I'm the bad guy. I'm like,
right.
it took you that far to real I say he was my student, so he was my student for a few years, and then when he went back home, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years after he'd been at home. So I can't say that it was my teachings that led him to throw that first punch. Just how he said it, he's like, I was certain that he was going to hit me. I said, oh, what'd you do? He said, no, so I hit him 1st. It's like, no. Oh, goodness
cool.
me.
Well, I think we get into a wrap-up point. We're a little over 90 minutes, so this has been a great conversation. It's flown by. I just looked at the clock.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. I'm very much looking forward to coming over. We're still on track for coming over for the seminar, or I should say workshop, in the fall. We're targeting for September. I can't wait to get on the mat with you and Matt State and the other people. Like I got so much great stuff that I'm looking forward to sharing and having you guys share with me. And I want to have it be a different experience from what people tend to do when they gather up. We're going to have like a laboratory, like let's play and enjoy the martial arts and kind of, do our best to wow each other. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we can learn lots from each other,
Absolutely.
And I think this is a very conducive environment. And I'm also looking forward to whatever food we'll get afterwards.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Exactly. And we're looking forward. My wife and I we're both going to be coming over, so we're looking forward to the cuisine. Hopefully, the lockdown situations are going to start lifting more. Looking forward to that. If we have to push the date back a little bit, we will. But I am so determined to get over there.
Me too.
Got a huge appetite for doing it, and I've got some students that want to come from my dojo over there as well. So,
fantastic. My goodness.
Yeah, it's going to be really great.
Thank you so much for having me on again.
What's that?
Thank you so much for having me on again. It's
thank you, John, for coming. Was there anything you wanted to wrap up with? I'll give you the last word, and we'll wrap her up.
Me the last word.
Sure.
Well, anytime you want me to come back on, it is always an honor to be here, privilege, and it's so lovely to speak to like-minded people like yourself, and just the extent of your experience, and it's humbling for me as well. And I think I love being here. So thank you so much.
It's great to have you. I know I'm going to have you back on, and I'll let the listeners in a little bit. I sent John a list of potential topics to talk about, and he's like, I was excited for all of them. So we're gonna nail some of those other ones too here coming shortly. That's right. Go figure. 2 martial artists excited to talk about martial arts. Like, how has that ever happened?
Oh, so exciting, Tristan. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to be here.
You bet. Thank you, John. It was great having you on, and look forward to it again.
Yes, absolutely. Take care now.
Take care. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Stay tuned for more episodes. I've got some great stuff on the way very soon. In the meantime, enjoy your training.